Hi, everyone. We are here with Ashley Brauweiler today, a meteorologist with CBC. So we're going to have her tell us about herself to kickstart our Green Energy Month for September. So, Ashley, can you please tell us about yourself?
Like you said, I'm a meteorologist with CBC Newfoundland Labrador. I've been a meteorologist for how many years now? Almost 10 years, I guess, as an operational forecaster, and then eventually got into broadcast meteorology about 5 years ago now.
Amazing.
Mhm.
And I've read in your profile that you wanted to be a meteorologist since you were five, hey?
Yeah, so that's something that's actually fairly common in the meteorological field, is that you find that passion for weather very at a very young age. And for me, it was five, and I was scared of thunderstorms as a kid. And then that's kind of just where the passion grew. I want to know what they were all about, and so that I wasn't scared of them anymore. And that was pretty much where that all started. And then it just grew as I got older.
Amazing. Was there any moment or any time that you were like, if I wasn't a meteorologist, I would be a blank?
No, I don't think so. I think that having that passion for weather and meteorology has kind of always been at the forefront of everything. I mean, I love cooking. Like maybe one day would I want to own a restaurant? Like if this didn't work out, maybe, I don't know. But like as far as um, my passion for meteorology and wanting to be a meteorologist, that has always been the be all end all for me.
I, I just need to ask, like, did anyone try to steer you away from that? Like your parents or your teachers say, no, Ashley, like that's not for you, or
No, actually, I've been very fortunate ever since I was little that my parents always just kind of fostered that. And anytime that I was like, I'd come up with these random ideas. I wanted to go to Environment Canada and do a tour of Environment Canada. I wanted to do a tour of the Weather Network just to make sure that, that was something that I wanted to do. And my parents were always like, "Yeah, okay, set it up. We'll take you." And and they've always just let me do that, which was really great.
that's amazing. Have you had any young people come to you since you've actually been on the air yourself and try to do job shadowing?
Yeah, so actually, I have had a couple people do that, but then COVID obviously got in the way. I've only been here for 3 years, and a year and a half of that has been COVID. But I often will visit the schools and we talk to the kids in grade five, and I remember that very vividly in my when I was younger, that grade five weather class, because I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I've had a couple of young girls come up to me and be like, "I want to be a meteorologist. Like, what do I do?" And I just kind of, I tell them stick to science. Science is your best friend, and you're going to have to do that in school. Like, I have a degree in meteorology, or a degree in physics rather, and a certificate in meteorology, and so I had to take science, and you have to take that through high school. So that's really the only advice I have.
Is that physics? Is that sort of the normal way to get into meteorology, or can you do a music degree and then do a certificate in meteorology?
So meteorology is very, very math heavy. Everything, the atmosphere works like a big giant mathematical equation. Everything gets plugged into a computer and gets calculated and spits out a forecast. So no, you have to follow science pretty much the whole way. The reason why I did physics to get there was simply because I wanted to stay home. I was living in Southern Ontario at the time. I didn't want to, or that's where I'm from. I didn't want to move to Toronto for 4 years and go into, significant debt, because I could do a physics degree at home. And then because it's essentially a 5 year program, I could do the meteorology on top of that. And having a strong science background to get into something like that was very beneficial. But there are ways to get, if you want to do a full 5 year program, it's called Earth and Atmospheric Science, and that's the program that you would take. But again, you're pretty much doing a physics degree in that program to get you there. So I just kind of went around it a different way.
Did you have any help figuring out how to kind of make that your own in that way? Like you wanted to stay home. Was there like guidance counselors, or did you have to talk to the university?
Yeah, so there was a lot of back and forth with different universities for sure. There were a lot of things that were happening at the time to be able to stay home. So I talked to Brock, and that's where I went for my physics degree. And I said, is first of all, obviously it's possible to do a physics degree. Then I had to talk to York University, which is where I got the certificate in meteorology, and make sure that I had all the prerequisites, because if you don't have them, then that makes it a little bit more difficult. But yeah, so there were a few steps, but in the end, it worked out perfectly fine.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Do you still have to do any kind of continuous training, or like is anything required of you to keep your degree or certificate up to date?
No, pretty much once you're a meteorologist, it's all up to you to kind of learn. I mean, I learn something every single day. The weather is always changing. And if you're not learning something, like you don't come out of school, for example, I didn't come out of York University knowing how to forecast at all. I had no idea. I learned pretty much all of that on the job. And I mean, nowadays, I mean, had I not been focused on physics so much, I probably would have been doing a lot more forecasting on my own and learning that sort of stuff. But because physics is so intense, it's kind of hard. But yeah, I remember that first time I got that job, worked for AMEC in Ottawa, and I had no idea how to forecast. I knew the weather. I knew what how it worked, and how thunderstorms developed, and how to forecast or how to read temperatures and all that sort of stuff. But I didn't know how to put that all together. And a lot of that is literally just on the job, get thrown into it, take all that knowledge you have and figure it out. And that's what I did.
Amazing. So it's almost an art in a
It
way.
is, in a lot of ways with my job now as a broadcast meteorologist, is be able to take all of that information, all that scientific jargon, and present it as a story to the people that are watching and make it digestible and understandable. And I think that's one of the most fun parts of my job, because sometimes I can throw in some of that jargon and explain it. And then it, you just give a different dimension, because everybody looks at their phone and knows, oh, they know what the weather's going to be like. Like even my partner, like they'll just look at the phone and be like, oh, it's going to rain today. I'm like, I know you're with a meteorologist, but at least I can provide some sort of context, and that's really lovely.
Amazing. Looking back, like, was there ever, I don't know, what might have been like a highlight of your career today? Any like, I guess, huge weather event, or maybe meeting someone, one of your role models, or anything like that?
So the biggest, and I think it will be the storm of my career, was Snowmageddon in St. John's. That was probably one of the most incredible things that I've experienced. It was, you see it coming and you see it in the models and you're like, no way that's going to happen. Like, that's crazy. And then it happens. And was stuck at the studio. I had to sleep under my desk. I got there at 5 o'clock in the morning. I did not sleep the night before because I was so excited, and got there at 5 o'clock in the morning. And then I didn't leave until 6:30 the next morning. I literally had to snowshoe home. There was no way that I could get home otherwise. And I learned a lot about storm preparation, and at that point really got a sense of why my job is relatively important when it comes to severe storms and potentially dangerous situations, and that definitely was. And yeah, so I learned a lot about that, just how to convey it, how to convey the importance of a storm, how to react, and then eventually cover it, because you have to cover it when you're absolutely exhausted. You have to cover it. I was still doing radio hits at 3 o'clock in the morning, that whole day. And I mean, I was tired. I slept for 2 days after that, but yeah.
Yeah, I remember
Most incredible storms.
watching your hits on Facebook Live and such. I think you did
Yeah,
one back and forth with Ryan Stodden too that I
yeah,
recall, and
yeah.
both of you just look exhausted, especially yourself. Of course, Ryan didn't get hit so
No,
bad in the Maritimes, but
he didn't get anything. He was jealous. In fact, he said to me, because he left, I obviously replaced him here. And he said that he was so jealous of the fact that I got to cover a storm like that. And he didn't get anything like it, at least winter storm wise. But yeah, I was so grateful for him to step in that day because we lost power. So I literally couldn't do anything. I couldn't forecast. I couldn't create graphics. I couldn't do anything. And it was basically just me and Anthony and Carolyn, and we were out in it and just kind of saying like, this is, because it was essentially just the Avalon that got hit. There was no other part of the province that saw it that bad. So it's nice to paint a picture for people.
right. Yeah, that was quite the storm for sure.
Yeah,
One to remember. I
yeah. Like
was
I said, it'll
shoveling
be.
for a week.
I was really lucky though, and I think the weather gods were in my favor because I walked home and I knew because my producer had gone just before me and lives down the street, but he said, your house, like there is no snow in front of your house. And I was so lucky because I didn't know what I was coming home to. I could have come home to not being able to get into my house, but my backyard, the snow pile was up over my second story window. So
Wow.
I don't think that melted. It didn't melt until February, or no, April. I think that's when it melted. Yeah, it was crazy. I love it. I loved every second of it.
Yeah. Do you do many snow sports besides having to snowshoe home?
No, I used to figure skate as a kid, but that didn't last very long. I still love skating, but I mean, I guess I played baseball a lot when I was little, so that was my sport. But I do love skiing, but I haven't been able to do that. I lived up in Yellowknife before, and there was no hills or anything there. And then here, I've gone out a couple of times, but I'll get back into it. When I was in Ontario, when I lived in Ontario, I was skiing all the time.
Yeah. I don't know how much you can are you get to travel around the province at all as a meteorologist?
Yeah, so that's one of the great things about what I do. Well, at least pre-pandemic was being able to go into the communities and travel. I went up to Labrador, did the Labrador Winter Games, that sort of stuff. I'm hoping that once everything settles down with the pandemic and we get back to some sort of normalcy, that I'll be able to get back out. A lot of my time spent at this point around the province has been purely vacation, and I absolutely love it here. But my favorite part is when I go into a community and someone's like, Ashley, and they want to talk about the weather, because that is something, especially here in Newfoundland, Labrador, that everybody talks about. It's like, because it affects us so much here. There's really no other place in the world, well, in this country, I should say, that has so much different types of weather. We could see rain, snow, freezing rain, all in one day, and thunderstorms. Like we've had that all happen in one day here in Newfoundland, Labrador. So the weather really is a huge topic. And then when I get out into the communities and everybody wants to talk about it, it's really lovely.
Is that part of why you picked to come here? Like you said, you're from Ontario. Were you looking at Newfoundland and Labrador, going like, that's the place
It's the place.
meteorologists?
It kind of is. It really is. But no, I mean, it all happened kind of organically. However, I knew that it was a place that I would love because it has all of the weather, and it would challenge me. It challenges me daily. There are days where I want to like bang my head against the wall because the forecast isn't working out. And I'm like, I don't know why it's not working out. And that kind of comes with the whole learning every single day. Everything is different because we have so many systems that go through, and the province itself has so many different elevations and variations in elevations, and the weather is just so different, even from St. John's to CBS. It's not that far, but the weather is very different and can be. We could be socked in fog and they're sunshine and 28 degrees. So, I mean, not that dramatic, but you know what I'm saying. It's beautiful and not so beautiful.
Oh, sometimes it can be pretty dramatic to go over that
Yeah.
highway. Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a world away and
Yeah.
only 20 minutes drive.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Um, I guess I've always wondered this. Is there any other jobs that you could do with a meteorologist certificate? Because or what does the labor market sector or labor market outlook look like? Because you're CBC, you are the meteorologist for CBC. Is it really hard to get a job? Do you have other options? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question because when you get into meteorology, first of all, there's very few of us. I graduated with a class size, I say there may have been 20 of us that graduated together, and they all mainly took the Earth and Atmospheric Science. I was one of the only ones that had done the meteorology certificate. However, one of us, I think it was just me, I was the only one who got into broadcast meteorology. Now, there were a couple of us that had gone into like the Weather Network, because you can work for the Weather Network, you can work for Environment Canada. However, before that, my first job was an operational forecaster. So I worked for a private company. Now, there are lots of jobs out there for private corporations that pay, like for example, like AMEC, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, they have contracts with different various areas. So I actually used to forecast for Newfoundland, Labrador for the Department of Transportation. So the Department of Transportation will hire a meteorology consulting company, AMEC, to tell them the weather so that they know when to send out the plows, when they need overtime, when they need to salt, when they need to when they have clear skies to do road repairs, when they have like for painting, that sort of stuff, because weather is so important to the Department of Transportation. Places like insurance companies, they want to know when severe weather is going to happen so they can get their best adjusters out. So there's kind of things you don't really think about past just broadcast meteorologists, because when you think about meteorology, you think about the person on the news, right? Really, that's the only person you really think about. You don't think about the people that are behind the scenes that are giving you the forecast on the Environment Canada website, or on or the other people that need the weather, or at least an accurate depiction of what the weather is going to be. So that's the sort of the difference. You can go government, Environment Canada, you can go operationally for a private company, or you can go into the broadcast. Now, the broadcast side of things, they are few and far between. I mean, you think about it, we've got Global News, CTV, CBC. Each person has a meteorologist or a weather person or weather presenter who may or may not be a meteorologist. And then you've got in Toronto, you've got like City and a couple other places, so really there are not a lot of us. And then you have yeah. So
yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. That there's just not a lot of you, but I hadn't realized that there's meteorologists for the Department of Transportation. Like I just assumed they watched the weather just like
exactly. So no, like they get sent out like an hour by hour. Like when I was working first, I was doing hourly forecasts for the city of St. John's. So I would tell you exactly when it would transition from snow to ice pellets to freezing rain. And so they would know when to send the trucks out, when they would have to send the salt trucks out, and then eventually, potentially the plows or whatever it was. So there's a lot of planning that comes into it. And you could save companies lots and lots of money sometimes, or if the forecast gets botched, the other aspect. So it's an interesting job. And then you have meteorologists that work on not necessarily just day-to-day operational forecasting. You've got ice forecasting, which is a huge thing now with climate change, massive for the government, right? You're looking at icebreakers up in the Northwest Passage or whatever you're doing. So I know a few meteorologists that work for that. And then you've got like fire forecasting, another huge thing, fire weather forecasting. So yeah, there's lots of different avenues to take. If you're not interested in the day-to-day operational forecasting, there are so many other opportunities.
Yeah, I can. I'm starting to appreciate, I should say, how diverse this must be. But I just imagine the students watching this, there might be some out there that have always thought it's not for me because I don't want to be on television.
That's right. And you absolutely do not have to be on television. There's so, you know what, to be honest, there's a very few meteorologists are actually on TV. Most of them all behind the scenes. You never see them. You don't even know that they've created the forecast, but it's there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, we're talking about green energy this month more generally. So I'm just now thinking too, even offshore, we have obviously oil fields, but now they're doing offshore wind farms and everything. There must be meteorologists for that as well.
There certainly are. I've done lots of marine forecasting, again, early on in my career. When you're forecasting for a spot in the middle of the North Atlantic, there's not a whole lot of resources for you, and fog rolls in and fog rolls out just as quickly. And it is important. It's important for all of those industries to have accurate forecasting. Again, can they send out a helicopter to get the crew that's there? Are they going to encounter fog? Can they drill? Is there going to be, 100-foot waves today because of storms? Like, they can't drill when they're doing that. So, there's all of that. There's all of that too. There's lots of different disciplines.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for filling us in. I feel like I've personally learned so much from this. Did you have any kind of further advice for students kind of looking at this as a career path, or any further ideas for them to find a place to look for helping them make their career decisions?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is if you are looking at having a career in meteorology, first of all, there's lots of different disciplines, like I said. Second of all, just make sure if you're in school and you're in high school, the biggest thing would be to focus on your sciences and make sure that you have those prerequisites, because if you don't have them, then obviously you can't take anything in science. But also, there are so many resources. Reach out. For me, for example, I reached out to Environment Canada and talked to one of the meteorologists there, and he kind of walked me through everything. And then when I got my degree and I contacted him again, he's like, "That's so amazing. Like, I'm so happy that you actually went through with that." So there are lots of people. I mean, everybody, especially as a meteorologist, we're so passionate about the weather. We'll talk about the weather forever. I could sit here and talk for hours about the weather. And everybody's journey is different. Mine took 5 years. Some people's take 7 years. It depends on, some people do it online afterwards. They're a little later in life and they realize that that's what they wanted to do. And there's so many options for that. And a lot of stuff is just right there on the internet. Like, a lot of it you can just Google and learn, and then go through the actual schooling and figure it out. But yeah, just don't get discouraged if the path isn't exactly straight, because mine was zigzagged. So, and I still got there.
I feel like you might be the closest to an A to B path that we've heard, but we hear all the time that career paths are not what you expect.
No, they never are. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Ashley. And it's sunny where I am, so hopefully you can go enjoy this lovely weather. And I'm sure we'll see you again.
Yes, you certainly will. Thank you so much.